I think, personal brand has been huge in my life. It's been something I've mostly committed to, like over these last 5 years. I've had, a couple months where I've dipped out a little bit and taken some time off or whatever. But in general, I would say it's been a pretty consistent effort. And I think consistency is really everything. Like when I started SEO Notebook, I knew the idea was good, but like I didn't really have any experience in doing this stuff. And there's a guy named Dirk Diggy. He was like buds with Glenn Alsop, and like I just knew him through like the social media. And I had a conversation with him like prior to starting SEO Notebook. And he just offered me this like one really important piece of advice that was, if you don't email weekly, people are going to forget about who you are. And if he didn't tell me that, I probably would have started a biweekly newsletter and not been as successful.
I'm John Wright, and you're listening to Affiliate BI, the business intelligence and affiliate marketing podcast brought to you by StatStrong. Welcome to the Affiliate BI podcast. Today, we're chatting with Steve Toth, who is the founder of SEO Notebook, which I'm a big fan of. And he's also running an event called SEO IRL in Toronto, which I got a ticket for. And Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So, how much time are you spending creating your SEO notebook? And I ask that because I'm a content creator for the B2B side. But what I think is that I'm guessing you're putting in a lot of quality time making an amazing product that people talk about and link to. And I think maybe your answer might give some insights to people on the affiliate marketing side.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe I'll just start with, just for those of the watchers who aren't familiar with SEO Notebook, what it is exactly. It's a newsletter, but it's not like a roundup newsletter. So essentially, what I do and have done for the past 5 years is create like one actionable piece of strategy, and then email that to my list on a weekly basis. So I've been doing that for 5 years now, which means I have over 250 actionable strategies that I've sent out. And hopefully like by this point, we're almost at 20,000 subscribers. So I'm doing something right. And, in terms of like how much time I put into this content, it can be as little as 30 minutes, or it could be as much as like almost 2 full working days. It just really depends on, what I'm doing and how I'm inspired. So, last week, what I did was I created a spreadsheet that essentially pre-populated a bunch of URL strings for tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush and other tools like SiteLiner, Copyscape, archive.org. And essentially what you just do is put your URL into your domain into the tool. It then pre-populates all those URLs for you, which you can just open in a bunch of tabs and kind of get like a nice high level overview of how your site's doing, and like very specific screens at Ahrefs, like what are my new backlinks? What are the keywords that have declined? What are the keywords that have risen? Stuff like that. And, that note was just basically like an idea I had in the shower. And it was very quick for me to put that together, like maybe only an hour. But, when it comes to things like, creating AI bots and stuff, you never know how long those ones are going to go. And honestly, they can take a very long time to get it right and cause a lot of frustration. And I've had things where like, I've lost my change history on like certain bots and like had to go back and like, go back and try to fix stuff. So those ones can definitely be a bit more frustrating. And I am more cognizant to give myself, extra time when I am, creating a GPT bot. But for example, one of the ones that was relatively like not too bad, maybe only took me like 5 or 6 hours, was creating a GPT bot that analyzed Google patents. So what I did was I uploaded the Google leak to the back end of the GPT bot, and then basically had the bot, analyze a Google patent PDF against sort of a structured way of looking at the whole thing. So, pulling the abstract, looking at key concepts, et cetera. And then also comparing what was in the patent to the leak as well. And, that it does take a lot of trial and error, but, I learned so much when it comes to prompting, I think trial and error is everything. When you're trying to achieve a certain thing and, you're just kind of like constantly refining, you can just learn so much that way. And, that bot, yeah, like I said, maybe took 5 or 6 hours, but, the AI stuff, I always like if I'm, have the weekend, I always tell my girlfriend, like, it's gonna be, like, potentially a little longer than I can really anticipate. So she likes it when I'm not doing GPT bot, things on the weekend.
So do you ever write a note and then it takes 5 hours and then you realize it's not gonna work and then you just scrap it and throw it out? And
Oh, absolutely,
I'm
yeah.
asking for a friend.
Yeah, no, seriously, like, that's a very valid point. Last week when I mentioned I came up with that note around pre-populating those URLs, that was actually because I had failed on a GPT bot earlier than that. So I was trying to create a bot that would predict whether or not a page could be shown in Google Discover and like how likely a page would be to be shown in Google Discover. And I had, lots of really solid criteria that I was evaluating the page against and all kinds of things. But, when it actually came down to testing it with my own data and looking at the pages that I knew for sure showed in Discover, and then the pages that I knew absolutely did not show in Discover, the bot was just a complete failure. So I never released that GPT bot, and like I'm always very cognizant of like my success is tied to how much I can how much value I can provide through SEO Notebook. And, I'm never going to release something that I don't think is good or is delivering false positives and stuff like that. So that was unfortunately, probably 4 or 5 hours down the drain when I finally realized that this thing just wasn't reliable in terms of predicting Google Discover. And that's totally fine. I just move on to the next thing.
Damn. Going straight into technical SEO, I want to ask you, what is keyword verticalization strategy? And I'm asking this because you mentioned that you did some of this work for consulting for Mapton and I think it's FreshBooks. So I just want to know if you're able to share examples of that.
Yeah, for sure. I've done it for Mapton, FreshBooks, Signaturely, Altline, lots of different companies. So essentially, this verticalization strategy, and actually, I'll mention one thing that it's not live yet, but I have a 5-part email series that really goes into depth with this. I will be launching it on SEO Notebook. And if you subscribe to SEOnotebook.com, that's probably the best place you can hear about it, where literally go into dissecting the whole strategy in detail, like from in a series of 5 different emails. But essentially, when there is an industry that target a company that targets several industries, there's oftentimes like a really good opportunity for SEOs to, create the one page on, let's say, invoice templates like at FreshBooks, and then targeting invoice templates for contractors, for lawyers, for graphic designers, and even things like file types for PDF, for Excel, for Google Sheets, and essentially verticalizing your content across these different industries. For Mapton, that was indoor maps for malls, for offices, for stadiums, and stuff like that. You can really build a lot of solid relevance with Google. And when you have people who are searching for a very tailored solution, like I don't want just any invoice template, I want one for a graphic designer. You end up actually having a much higher conversion rate because the thing that you're offering them is specifically relevant to them. So I would say like you obviously like shouldn't just like, create a page about graphic designer invoice template and not make it, just be generic. I wouldn't suggest that. I would suggest basically making it as tailored as possible. And we've done that on sites like signaturely.com, which is a site that I helped launch actually in 2020, that's just doing extremely well since then. And, we created contract templates. So we actually created literal contracts for, wedding planner contract or photographer contract and stuff like that. And, actually offered a real piece of value to all those, different verticals. So, when that's a online signature software. So obviously, people who are looking for that kind of stuff are in the market for, getting a legally binding online signature. So it was another great opportunity for that type of strategy.
Yeah, it sounds like middle or bottom of funnel content with high intent.
Yeah, exactly. So when we did invoice templates, that was a really unique situation just because if you look at a company like FreshBooks or QuickBooks or Zero, the total addressable market for those companies is absolutely huge. Just freelancers and contractors around the world, right? And that also translated into extremely high volume keywords, just because there's so many people looking for an invoicing solution, right? So if you can, yeah, find a vertical opportunity that is a company that is, pretty much mass market, like you could say that FreshBooks is B2B, but you could also say that it's B2C when you're talking about like freelancers and contractors. When you can kind of marry those two things, it can be like, such a huge opportunity. But even on a smaller scale, like when I've been working with Mapped now for over 4 years, there's not that many people looking to make an indoor map, but it is like you said, it's high intent, and people are like, wow, well, I have a stadium and I really need an indoor mapping solution. This page tells me all about how to do that, and shows me that you've done X, Y, and Z stadiums. Unfortunately, they can't say that they have worked with certain professional sports leagues. Unfortunately, we can't use that, but they have. But like just basically what I'm saying is like when you see that custom tailored landing page, your conversion rate is going to be a lot higher. So even in the case where mapped in isn't super high volume, it's still very much worth it to do that kind of strategy.
It sounds like it's kind of similar or related to programmatic SEO, just maybe a little different.
Yeah, it could be for sure. Like uh, the you can take a programmatic approach to that, but I would say that if it you kind of have to weigh like what your resources are, right? So let's say you're doing contract templates, and you want to take like a chat gpt contract to everything, or you literally just want to like swap out industries as placeholders across all these different things. Like you can do that and take more of a programmatic approach, but I think ultimately you have to look at like what are your resources, what's the potential payoff, and either invest in human written content or AI content that's human edited, and just like have a little bit more of a sales slash copywriting angle to it than just straight find and replace.
And going into more of an example, like for what we do, we have a directory of affiliate programs across many different industries, and we have a lot of rich data behind it. And I'm wondering if there's a right and wrong way of doing programmatic. I'm assuming the wrong way is doing so much maybe AI or low quality or thin content that you have so many pages that Google says, hey, you're just basically blasting the internet here. But I'm just wondering if there's like a best structure to say, okay, we've got um, a main page that's affiliate programs, and then it's like the industry, but then it could be the industry in relation to a country or in relation to a commission type. So what would your thoughts on that be?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can certainly rank with the very like, programmatic, low effort content. It all just really depends on your competition, right? So if you're the first site to go after, a particular strategy, like particular keywords in your niche, and all you would need is just basically a relevant page, and you would rank. But I think over time, you're going to obviously have competitors. And by this point, like it's also improbable that you're the first to do something on the internet. So I guess, when evaluating the approach that you're going to take with that, you really need to look at the competition, and kind of gauge how much effort is going to be required to rank.
I think I'll have to do a bit of research on the search intent, but I can say that some of those examples where you go super deep haven't really been touched, and I'm kind of surprised on it. So because you said be the first, I think I'm going to put that as high priority without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, like you can, like I said, if you are one of the early trailblazers in that, you really only need like, your title tag to be relevant in your H1. Like that would get you there, right? But I think maybe one important point there is like even if you are able to get to a very like, advantageous position by with minimal effort, you shouldn't just let those pages be. You should, make a concerted effort of like at least evaluating the performance every 6 months and making adjustments.
I agree. I like to think that building a product is helpful, like applying it to affiliate sites and to help them survive and thrive. But maybe not everything could be an affiliate product. So, what else do you think? Just putting a pretend affiliate hat on. What do you think affiliate sites can do that's not always a product that's going to help them um, survive?
Well, I think the one big obvious one is an email list. I mean, I can say for myself, like even not being like an affiliate first, my affiliate revenue through my email list is pretty solid. The more captive an audience you have, the higher quality list you have, the more you're going to be able to blast out relevant offers and really monetize that way. So, that also it's obviously the landscape is changing quite rapidly with what type of traffic affiliate sites are, going to expect. But if you build that email list off your tofu content that's ranking, you essentially create like a really viable channel for you to earn a lot of revenue. I would also say that like it seems counterintuitive, but from what I have personally seen, like really successful affiliates are now offering consulting, like literally because they have proven themselves to be, super successful. They've got a few flipped sites under their belt, like they have, cred in the industry, and are actually just offering consulting to clients, right? So, I mean, that's my main revenue source is SEO consulting and kind of hybrid agency work, which is what we do. And, I can tell you that like, as long as you know how to sort of choose the right types of clients and you know a little bit about client management, it can actually be like an amazing, you know, focus for you. Really like, I know, a friend of mine here in Toronto, Alex, Savvy. I don't know if you know him, but, he flipped a site in the mattress industry for over 1 million, and now he's really looking at, consulting as being, one of his, primary income sources, right? Because he has that track record and he has that credibility. So, I think, you know, through creating content that demonstrates your expertise, you're going to be able to attract those types of clients. So, that would be, I would say the most lucrative opportunity if you're asking me, but I'm also biased because that's what I.
It might be biased, but I think it's a perfect example of going, what is the value of a single user or a single click? Like I've talked to a lot of SEO personalities, and they basically say when they go on YouTube, they might have 200 views, and people think this person's not making any money. But what you can't see behind that is the invisible DMs that lead to, hey, I want to talk to you. What are your rates? And then, once you have that experience, the quality is kind of implied in the price.
Yeah. Once people kind of see, you like just see a personal side of you, like, I've gotten amazing clients through podcast appearances that, and on my own website, I even have like a press section. You may be watching it through that right now in the future, but, I even have a press section that just has all of my podcast appearances. And, I've had multiple clients say that they've discovered me through podcasts. I've had clients tell me that they've discovered me because someone else mentioned my name on a podcast. Like, so there's the thing about inbound marketing and all that kind of stuff is it's really impossible to predict, where your next lead is going to come from. But you have to kind of take the approach that, you're sowing seeds and eventually those seeds are going to sprout and, start paying back to you. You've just always got to kind of be planting them.
I want to go back to what you said about newsletters. Do you think that by having a newsletter audience, that when you post something, and let's pretend it's going back to your website, that it's kind of like an indirect signal for Google that says, hey, we have real traffic coming back and you're not fully dependent on the search traffic.
Yeah, I think that's definitely potentially a very positive sign. You know, when you say, you don't really have an email list, you have a Gmail list is what you really have, right? So Google's like keeping tabs on how many people are replying to you, what your open rate is and all that kind of stuff.
They would never
Wow.
do that.
I think, yeah, that, you essentially, yeah, have like, a new traffic source. It really legitimizes you. You're when you have a new post, you're blasting it out and you're getting a bunch of, traffic. It's just like social media traffic too, right? It's there's obviously not Google Plus anymore, but, um, I think Google has a good idea about which websites, have legit, like natural signals like that, and which ones are, just expressly for the purpose of ranking and banking.
Then, similar topic on newsletters. Do you think people should care about the SEO value of their newsletter or maybe care more about the social value? Because I mean, we have tools like Beehive and like there's ConvertKit, and some of them they're not always websites. They're kind of like they might be a website, but they don't really seem to care much about being indexed or being SEO optimized. So, what's your take on that?
Well, personally, for me, I don't even launch any content on my website. I keep it all in the newsletter and through Notion, right? Part of that is that, like, I really give away my best stuff on SEO Notebook, and I don't want like it to be always out in the open all the time, right? And it's also hard to optimize for certain things. Like nobody's searching for, Google Patent Analyzer GPT, right? So I personally just take the like social, um, and just content first approach to all that, and don't really try to rank things. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that it's like not a wise thing to do to try to rank for, on page SEO tips or best link building strategies or whatever you want to kind of rank for. But I would say for a newsletter audience, they want to like, they appreciate good copywriting. They appreciate brevity, getting to the point. And then, sometimes when you're trying to optimize an article a little bit, it's a bit counterintuitive to creating the content that way.
That makes sense because I mean, like just another example of my side where it's like, okay, maybe I want to have a community for my audience, which is affiliate marketers. And what are the options? There's Facebook where the Facebook page could rank itself, but the content inside might not rank. And then I could use Discourse as a forum, which is more of an SEO playbook. But I'm just wondering if you think the tide has changed where people don't really care about these old forums. Maybe they're actually going, I want to be in a community where if I want to be anonymous or private, it's none of your business.
Um, the what's the question there though? Sorry.
The question's more like, you have two options, like whether it's a newsletter or a forum, where it's like they're kind of community based. And you could either care about the SEO component or you can say, I don't give a damn. And I'm wondering if like the trend for people, especially the younger generation, is they're not really caring about, hey, I found this as a discourse forum that's fully indexed in Google. They're finding it in maybe Facebook communities or more like Discord, Telegram, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, I think actually, like, even like stuff like WhatsApp channels are probably a pretty underrated source of traffic, considering how ubiquitous WhatsApp is and how easy they are to set up and just blast out your content through there. And probably also a very intimate channel in terms of like, reaching your audience through something that they don't really consider as like a Facebook or a Twitter feed, right? So I definitely think there's, other channels that can, help basically um propel your content and your brand. And I also think that even though like SEO Notebook is somewhere around a DR50 with like no conscious link building, there's also like certain spaces are so saturated, right? Like you look at like even like a guy like Matt Diggity, right? It's hard for his blog to compete against, Search Engine Land and Search Engine Journal and all those, really well established sites for like SEO tips and tricks and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that Matt's not doing a good job with his site. It's just that, even somebody of that stature is going to have a harder time, ranking and competing in such a saturated market, right? So, um, I think, if you're going to go that route, I mean, I would try to mirror somebody like a Brian Dean, who did obviously backlinko.com and, put tons of effort into a very low number of pages, right? So his guides were really, off the charts in terms of, um, how in depth and thorough they were. And, he also wrote, I think at least, before he sold the SEMrush, I'm not sure now, all those articles like on his own, right? To keep the quality level super high. So, if you are looking at, you know, uh, a strategy like to try and rank and get views that way, I would be like really selective with what you do and like make sure that you know exactly who you're up against and that your quality is top notch. And also, develop a solid brand for yourself because that's also going to really help.
You just basically set up my next question, which is you, Steve Toth, Matt Diggity, Brian Dean. I mean, these are all personal names, and it's kind of like, who do I want to actually look up for um, people in the SEO space for thought leadership? I I, I do run across articles like Search Engine Land and things like that, but um, it's kind of like, I think this is why your notebook is as popular and why people follow Matt's blog and Facebook posts and YouTube channels. Do you think this is Google and everything else? People are just always naturally gravitating towards people.
Yeah, definitely. I think, personal brand has been huge in my life. It's been something I've mostly committed to like over these last 5 years. I've had, a couple months where I've dipped out a little bit and taken some time off or whatever. But in general, I would say it's been a pretty consistent effort. And I think consistency is really everything. Like when I started SEO Notebook, I knew the idea was good, but like I didn't really have any experience in doing this stuff. And there's a guy named Dirk Diggy. He was like buds with Glenn Alsop, and like I just knew him through like the social media. And I had a conversation with him like prior to starting SEO Notebook. And he just offered me this like one really important piece of advice that was if you don't email weekly, people are going to forget about who you are. And if he didn't tell me that, I probably would have started a biweekly newsletter and not been as successful. So, I think people look to people versus, just thinking that, Moz is an authority or SEJ is an authority or whatever. And then on the flip side of that, if that's what you're trying to do, like consistency really is everything. And obviously you have to pair that with like super high quality content and really give it your all. But if you just decide to like, if you don't have like a tight schedule in terms of like a consistent schedule of when you're going to share, you will just be forgotten. Like, you're not special.
That makes sense. I would agree to that in the sense that I've been doing podcasting for a year and a half straight. I don't miss a week. My newsletter was bi-weekly, but it's kind of becoming every 3 weeks. And I pay attention to a lot of people that you and a couple other friends that have weekly newsletters, and they just seem to get stronger because you're consistent. You're always top of mind. So, good lesson for me. And I think good lessons for a lot of other people.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if I didn't get that piece of advice, I might not be, as successful as I have been with SEO Notebook.
That's good. Um, I I've studied a lot of some of the most successful affiliates in iGaming and outside of iGaming, and I try to look at patterns of like what do I see as part of their success. And I think a lot of times SEO is a part of it, but I think other parts of it are brand. And one thing that I started noticing when looking through like, okay, who's working for these companies? Like, what are the jobs they're hiring for? And one that's starting to come as a pattern for me is like product, head of product, product owner, what is your take on it? Do you think this is something that a lot of like everything in digital marketing people might be overlooking?
Yeah, I mean, like, product people traditionally are the ones that help the company understand its users, right? Like where, you know, achieving that like classic like product market fit, right? is it there? Isn't it there? And those people have that, like, hopefully they have that ability and they have that experience to really, understand like who the different people are that frequent the site, and what are their needs, right? So if and they will, their job is not to, like, do the SEO per se, but their job is to guide the site in terms of like what it actually produces to meet user needs, right? So, yeah, I think it's a incredibly important role, and in the way that that kind of marries with SEO is like, well, what are the landing pages that are going to meet the user needs, not just like being a product person and saying that you know our freelancers need double entry accounting, and that's something that we really need to do to get more market share, right? But it's like, what front facing assets do we put on the site to, help attract those types of users?
Next question is, I want to know if you can share one or two notes from your SEO notebook, whether it's recent or in the past 5 years, where you're working on something and something just kind of hits you and you're like, wow, this is unreal. You feel like you've discovered like I don't know, a cheat code or something. What's one story that comes to mind that you just say, this is unreal. This is an amazing story or a case study?
Yeah, there's a few, like, I know when I have something, like, based on how excited I am about that week. And usually I do a pretty good job of giving myself the time to really figure out something that, I want to publish. And this was a while back, but what I realized would be like a really good way to kind of like achieve like topical relevance, which obviously parlays into topical authority, would be to like Google a keyword, right? So Google a keyword, let's say like car insurance, and then you look at like what are the top sites that are ranking for car insurance. So you might see things like Geico, Allstate, Liberty Mutual, stuff like that. And then from there, like, perform another search that is a site search for site:geico.com car insurance, site:libertymutual.com car insurance. And then basically what you're seeing there are all of the articles on that website that are helping it be relevant and ranking for that head term of car insurance, right? So, just even that like little insight there is like a really quick hack. I mean, you can skin a cat a million ways. Like you could do gap analysis, you could do all these other things, but in terms of like just sheer speed and efficiency of understanding what articles are causing a site to rank for super high competitive terms like car insurance. I love that one. So I recently I put that on YouTube, and it did fairly well. And then I recently republished that on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, and it did very well as well. So that one comes to mind as kind of an interesting one. I don't know. I have like just a lot. I'm looking at my things here. Uh, Let's just see what else I have. Um, oh yeah, this one I really liked as well. I called it "Why Google is the GOAT Keyword Research Tool." So basically, what you would do is like you'd start, and like I love using the Google SERP in case you haven't noticed to do keyword research. And what you start with is like googling a keyword like best mortgage rates. And then once you've Googled that, you go back up to the search bar and start typing things like what is, when does, what are, and Google, because it knows you just searched best mortgage rates, starts to give you things like what is a mortgage tracker, what is jumbo mortgage, what is a good credit score, and basically starts to try to anticipate the types of questions a person would ask directly after asking best mortgage rates into the search engine, right? So that one's a really fun one. And on SEO Notebook, essentially what I did was I shared a list of interrogative words, which are those like words that begin questions like what is, when does, can you, stuff like that. And the amount of amazingly relevant keywords you can get to something like best mortgage rates after doing that exercise. It's just insane. And it's also something that we've automated completely at my agency. But you can even just get started on your own, just doing it manually.
So, I mean, those last two tips, what I think you're going to get is you're going to get reverse engineer what the big companies are caring about. Like, so if you use Geico as one example, you're going to pick why did they create 40 pages around car insurance? Yeah. And how relevant are those pages? I think it goes without saying, you got to assume that some of these larger companies have invested a lot of time into market research and they wouldn't really keep these pages for the hell of it. I think they're creating these things because they're one, testing, and two, understanding the value that could be like high conversion, maybe lower volume.
Yeah, I mean, there's just going to be also very obvious pages like, first time driver car insurance, or student car, best car insurance for students, or, things that you may just not have on your site that are like obviously like monetizable pages. Right. So, even if you don't go the full, like, I need to, recreate, the best of strategy between Geico, Allstate, and Liberty Mutual, you can at least get some ideas of, bottom funnel landing pages that you can then produce.
A challenging question, just putting you on the spot. What would you do for a company, whether it's an affiliate site or a SaaS company, it doesn't matter, where people are problem aware, but they're not solution aware?
Um, I guess, like, problem. Okay. So they are, I'm just trying.
They know of a pain point and they can't
Yeah.
articulate it.
Yeah. I actually know, a really good, strategy for this. So in your Google Search Console, there is a wealth of data that I don't think enough people really leverage. And actually, this is not going to answer your thing, because it's like what I was going to say was,
I'm listening. You
you're
had me
un-
at Search
so
Console.
let me just go here for 1 second. In Google Search Console, there's a wealth of data, and people might be describing your product in a way that you actually aren't even aware of. So, using synonyms for things like system, tool, platform, software, app, you basically look at all your keywords that use those different, SaaS qualifiers. You can get like, a multitude of new ways that people are actually searching for your product. So those people, it may be a case where like they don't actually know if something exists, and they're like, you know, um, like a PowerPoint for, or like, apps like PowerPoint for your phone or something like that, right? Like maybe they don't even know that this exists, but they're trying to describe what they want. That's the type of, uh, uh, strategy that can kind of uncover those keywords. In terms of like, not solution aware, those people are still going to have questions that they're trying to solve. Like, how do I do X, or, what's the best way to do Y? You basically try to put yourself in the shoes of a user and like the common things that they encounter, and then go after that. There's other strategies whereby like you can even look at like, error codes that people get in certain platforms, and like start to optimize for those, and like, mention your competitor. So there's all kinds of things, that I think, are around that sort of sphere. But in terms of like your specific question, I would just basically try to optimize for the questions that a person has, like, how do I do X, or what's the best way to do Y? And then just go from there.
That makes sense. I mean, I was listening to a podcast on Chris Walker, who does B2B sales. I think it's Revenue Vitals, and he talked about how do you solve this where it's like you've got problem aware but not solution aware. And his answer was like he didn't say topical authority, but he kind of implied that. He said, be the person that people go to when they think of your core topic, where they can't articulate those questions. And I think it's difficult for people on the side of the business to go, how can I even know what they're looking for? I think
Yeah.
that requires like a little bit of intelligence, emotional intelligence to kind of go, I need to think like a user. And it's not easy.
like here's an example that I just thought of, right? Like say you're LMS, your learning management system, and somebody wants to create a course and they're like, what's the best way to teach X or what's the best way to create a course? Like, do I have to create a PowerPoint or do I have to film it or do I have to upload my thing? No, there's actually like real solutions that, like Kajabi or whatever that make the whole process easy. So, trying to figure out like in the process of a person who wants to create a course but isn't really familiar with LMS tools, like what are the different challenges that they're trying to tackle, right? Are they maybe saying that, oh, I have to create this on YouTube or whatever? Like, there's all sorts of all sorts of different avenues you can kind of target to get in front of that person.
Yeah. I think in my situation for what we do with our software company is we don't have a lot of examples of competitors that have already mapped out that whole space of what content to create. So we had to kind of uncover it on our own. And I think just by talking to affiliates and trying to create some content around it. I think that's where we had some accidental discoveries, and in our case, it was creating some content that we didn't really know what was going to work, and then realizing, hey, how did you hear about us? Well, I was looking how to build an API to connect with this affiliate program, and you showed up. Like, great! It's well, I wish we could have known that from day one.
One of the other like really key things, especially that I notice with my B2B clients, is we'll always ask them like, what are the common questions that your salespeople are getting asked over and over again? And basically try to optimize for what those are, right? Because you can't really oftentimes like you find those types of keywords in Search Console, but the sales people at these companies, they've basically got their list of common questions and then their, obviously their answers to what those questions are to effectively handle them. And that can be a really great resource if you can tap that.
And last question is, what do you see of the future of affiliate marketing as it intersects with business intelligence?
Well, I think getting your finger on the pulse of where Google is going. I think that ultimately we're going to have to brace ourselves for murkier data. And I mean, I think that trend has already been going for a long time in terms of not having the complete, picture of what's going on. Like, with AI overviews or you may have a number one ranking, but you may not even be above the fold anymore. Okay. So, stuff like that I think you've basically got to prepare yourself for, having, murkier data than ever. But at that said, like, murky data is definitely better than no data. And, using tools, like yours or like Looker Studio and bringing in different data sources and really trying to make something meaningful is, stuff that we do for all the sites that we work on. We have an amazing data analyst on our team who essentially creates, dashboards custom to whatever whatever the site really, wants to track or needs to track. So if that's a local business site, we've got CallRail in there. If they're a HubSpot site, then we've got HubSpot or all those types of things. But I would also say that like, having the data is one thing, but actioning on that data is a totally other thing. And you have to basically have, a good team in place who's going to be able to, harness all the things that you're tracking and, do the digging, right? Because a while back, I worked as a product advisor on keyword.com, bringing in a share of voice feature into that tool. And, it's great to have share of voice. It's great to know, where you stand. But if you don't actually, look at the sites that are beating you out in share of voice and are able to kind of reverse engineer that and, bring your site up to parity, then what's the use of having that data? Right. So I think just, getting the best data that you can from all the different sources that you can and then having a team that actively, optimizes against that.
Awesome. Steve, thank you so much for doing this. Obviously, we're going to put everything in the show notes, but how can people get a hold of you?
SEOnotebook.com is the best place. And then I would say follow me on LinkedIn because that's where I'm most active.
I'll add that. And of course, just another shout out to SEOIRL.com, which will be in Toronto. Looking forward to that.
Yeah,
Steve, thanks a lot.
that'll be October 4th, 2024 in Toronto. So I will see you there, but I hope to see others as well.
Thank you for tuning in to the Affiliate BI podcast. I'd like to take this time to ask for a small favor to leave a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcast. That helps us expand our reach to rank higher in podcast directories and reach more listeners.